Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. Glad you're with us. We're talking with a licensed therapist about setting boundaries and helping to maintain our mental health. And I think that's especially important this time of year. But we have Lauren Ruth Martin with us. Thank you for being here. Several calls, so let's just go to the phones. We kind of set the table here in the first segment. We'll just go to Edward here. Hello, Edward?
Yes.
Go right ahead. What's on your mind,
yes,
Edward?
I'm here.
Yeah, go right ahead. What's on your mind?
All right. This show is about mental things that basically can bother you. Mm-hmm. All right. The thing of it is, I live in Madison. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that I live in Madison is because this is happening in other parts of Davidson County also. We have loud cars on Saturday night and Sunday night come by revving the engines up all during the night, different times during the night. And I go to the council, and the council says, we'll check into it. You know, I wish Channel 5 could do it, because it's not just affecting Madison, it's affecting other parts of Davidson County too. I wish Channel 5 could actually do some kind of documentary where they go to the council and ask them about these loud cars.
Are you talking about drag racing? I've seen some drag racing type stuff. Yeah. Well, that is annoying. And what time is that happening? When are you hearing that?
All right, all during the night. It starts about 10 minutes to 10, and it goes all during the night into about 5 or 6 the next morning.
And I think you're right. It's not just Madison. Well, that sounds annoying. All right. Well, thank you, Edward. Okay, so here's an example.
I mean, it's an example of there's nothing too small that can impact our mental health. If we're already stressed, if we're already to the max, like imagine if you were having a ridiculous day and you go home and you want to wind down and you hear those engines revving. Like, if it matters to you, it matters, you know, because it's impacting your day. And especially if we are erring on the burned out side, like all of those things are going to grate our nerves even more. And so when it comes to that, I love that Edward is taking action, because we can either accept things and learn how to tolerate it, or we can move towards change. And where it can feel super fruitless sometimes if we're knocking the door and it's not opening. However, I believe that the effort alone is validating your own experience, and it's really just having your own back.
You said if you err on the burned out side. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, how many people now are erring on the burned out side?
A lot. That's a clinical term, but a lot, and it's because it's a bandwidth issue. You know, even if we have a lot of good going on, and I've shared this with some of y'all here, but my 4-year-old is lovely. I am absolutely obsessed with him. He is a huge source of my burnout. He is the cutest source of burnout in the world, because it's just so much to do.
Yeah. And that can happen. And so are we more burned out now than we have been? I don't know. You know, a generation or 10 years ago, or the pandemic, you know, are people more burned out now? I was talking to somebody today, and they said, everyone seems so upset. Everyone seems to have such a short fuse. And again, I don't know if that's just the world that they're in, or if it's a universal sort of shared experience that people feel at this time.
I would say it's both. I mean, again, we are now taking in information. Like, remember when you would go home at the end of the day and you could pull that landline out and people wouldn't call, and if they did, like, it was okay. You know, the caller ID happened, and that was a whole other realm. But we
get a busy signal.
Yes. I missed that. I've actually thought about getting a landline again, so that if something were to happen, my kid knows how to call it. But I'm not blaming everything on the cell phones. I'm blaming everything on this idea of accessibility and this idea of not having boundaries. You know, if my work is on my phone, I can work anytime, you know, and if I like working, even though sometimes it can be tiring, I might be on my phone a little bit too much. And there's so much, I mean, we're just now getting more and more data around like how these apps are made, how blue light affects us, you know. So I do think that we are more burned out because we're taking in more information, just as a whole.
So Edward is describing something, he has no control over that. I mean, he's upset that there's drag racing or loud cars going around in his neighborhood. Maybe part of the issue for him is that he's upset about other things as well. I don't know. But so what should someone like that do? He has no control over that. He can't.
Right.
He can't necessarily. I don't think he can stop the loud noise that's driving him crazy with the drag race. And I like that he's calling a show. He's apparently talking to the council, so he's taking some steps there.
Absolutely.
What else would you recommend?
I mean, again, and this is speaking broadly, we all have something that is like the drag racers in our life. Like, we all have one thing that is just like, oh my gosh, if that would stop, my life would be so much better. But like, there is that thing of acceptance, like that there are certain limitations, because we live in a world where limitations exist. Not the limit does not exist, the limit does, and we hit that wall a lot of times because of different systems and different protocols that we do to really coexist on this rock that we're floating in. Not to get too deep, but there is that element of acceptance, and then continuously doing what you can, like when you accept that it is what it is, so accepting that those cars are just going to do their thing, then you can move into change strategies. Maybe it is earplugs, maybe it is those nice headphones, maybe it's turning the music a little bit louder, maybe it's like doing some breathing exercises. And this does not resolve the problem. Instead of it being at a 10, it takes you to like a 7.
You have in here a quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. For what it's worth, it's never too late to be whoever you want to be. I hope you live a life that you are proud of, and if you find that you are not, I hope you have the strength to start over. So why do you include that quote?
Because I used to work with adolescents, and it was great because they had so much hope for the world, like they're bright and shiny. And when I started seeing more adults, I think a lot of us are really scared to shake things up. We're scared because we're used to that. It's like a wet blanket. It's cold, it's not great, but the weight of it feels comforting. And there's a lot of things that we tolerate in our day-to-day life because we already know how to deal with it. The unknown, the change is terrifying, and it's also takes more energy to adjust. And we have that opportunity anytime. So whether that's a job or whether that is a hair color. I mean, like when my adults come in and they get new hair color, I get excited for them. Like they're living their best life.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. And so you're saying they're often reluctant to take that first step.
Yeah.
They're more comfortable staying in a situation in which they're unhappy than taking a step toward changing things. And
not comfortable in the way of like, well, you're just comfortable or you're just lazy. Not in that sense. It's just familiar. So if you're already drained, if you're already trying just to navigate humaning in this time, and you think, oh, I need to learn something new, or I need to begin the process of doing things differently, even if that's driving a different way home, that's going to it's going to impact your nervous system. Like, it's going to take more energy to adjust, and sometimes we don't have that capacity.
So again, okay, you're a therapist. People come to you, they talk, they share their situation. Let's say you identify this in someone.
Okay.
What is the first, what do you try to, maybe they don't even see it. Mm-hmm. So you just say, hey, by the way, I think this is this and this. Or do you kind of guide them? Do you say, why don't you take a different way home from work? Or kind of what would you say to somebody if you saw that in them? Mm-hmm. What's the next step? So
there are therapists out there that want to guide their clients to coming up with a conclusion on their own. I do think that there's value in that, but I am also just too direct to dance around the subject. If somebody is frustrated every time they're driving the interstate home, I may say, hey, this will take longer, but it's a scenic route. There's more places to stop. This might benefit you in this way, so let's experiment. It's all just a bunch of experiments and seeing what we can try differently, because flexibility is all about knowing our options. And so I try to equip them with skills to be able to access options. So like the way to begin thinking more flexibly, but also getting used to the discomfort of trying.
The discomfort of trying. Yeah, I like that. Okay, we are going to take another break. If you want to call in, there's the number. 615-737-+. 615-737-7587. And I want to come back and talk about seasonal depression.
Cool.
because now it's dark early. People, they don't like that. All right, we'll take a break. Be back right after this.